on Prime Crime.
How is it possible that a woman and two kids are just completely gone off the face of the earth?
A family disappears and attention shifts to one man.
I want her back so bad. I want those kids back so bad.
No.
Yet will the truth ever be known?
Every time I see pictures of them, I don't know how this could have happened.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber, and welcome to Prime Crime. Now, this is where we do a deeper dive into the most high-profile and memorable true crime cases. This episode is about one of the most gruesome and disturbing events we have ever covered. In the early morning hours of August 13, 2018, a 34-year-old woman named Shanann Watts returns back to her Colorado home after a business trip. Later that day, Shanann and her two girls, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste, would be reported missing.
In this case, it was a friend that reported Shanann missing, her friend Nicole. Start to look at the house. Was there any evidence of foul play? Did she take a suitcase with her? Was her vehicle left behind? And start putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
Shanann was married to 33-year-old Chris Watts. At the time of her disappearance, the family of 4 was about to get a bit bigger.
We did it again.
They just said the pink is going to be girls.
I don't know. Just the chest.
That's awesome.
Chris and Shanann had what would be considered a picture-perfect marriage. They had a beautiful home. They both had striving careers. They had children, a baby that was on the way.
We would learn, though, that Shanann and Chris's marriage was on the rocks.
We do know that there was some strain in their marriage. There were some issues with his parents and how they felt about Shanann. And Shanann had expressed in some text messages to a friend that she felt that his parents were getting in the way.
You know, you start looking at text conversations and seeing that she was dominant. Chris was an introvert, Shanann was an extrovert. Shanann wore the pants in the relationship, and Chris was very passive, didn't like any of the public attention.
Chris tells police that when he returned from work, Shanann and the girls were gone. It's at this point when Chris's behavior comes into question.
I have no idea where they went. And it's just earth-shattering. I don't feel like this is even real right now. It's like a nightmare that I just can't wake up from.
His behavior during the porch interview was really interesting. He vacillates from being really calm verbally to being really fidgety and kind of rocking back and forth. That rocking shows the uneasiness.
Bella was going to start kindergarten.
He talks in the past tense about one of his daughters. The way that he talks about his children is as if he's grieving them.
It's like, I want her back so bad. I want those kids back so bad.
He kept repeating, I just want them back, I just want them back. And there was no real plea for their safety. You know, what happened to them? There were no tears, there was no emotion. He came off very cool.
Things get really strange, though, when police arrive. Watts' neighbor shows the officer and Chris himself what his security camera picked up in the early morning hours of the disappearance. The footage never shows Shanann leaving with the girls. Instead, it reveals Chris backing up his truck into the garage and loading it before eventually driving away.
Loaded my stuff up in my coolers, my water jugs, my book bag, my computers, some of the tools that I had from the toolbox. I knew I was going to have to do some pumping into rubbers today. That's why I was out so far.
Immediately, he started offering reasons as to what he was putting in the vehicle, and he was kind of hyper about that.
It'd be easier to lug everything out there, all the tools that I had to bring in.
He's kind of rocking back and forth. He's fidgety, his hands are behind his head. These are obvious signs of discomfort.
What else can I do with this?
A person who just lost their wife and children and do not know where they are would be sitting watching that footage with their eyes peeled to the screen to say, let me see if another car came. Let me see my wife and children walking out of the house after I left. Let me see what else you picked up.
When Chris leaves, listen to what that neighbor had to say.
No.
He doesn't look worried. He looks like he's trying to cover his tracks. And if he's loaded with stuff, why isn't he walking back and forth? But I can't see what he's doing in the back of the truck because he pulled into the garage. And he knows my camera's there. He never talks. So the fact that he's over here blabbing his mouth makes me kind of suspicious.
Chris was holding a secret from everyone, something that would add a new layer to this mystery.
We're not here to play games. We're not here to do any of that with you. We just want to know what happened.
Stay with us.
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTube TV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTube TV today, and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTube TV. We put you in the jury box.
How far along?
14, 15 weeks.
It's August 2018, and law enforcement are searching for Shanann Watts and her two daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste. The investigation is now focused on Chris Watts, Shanann's husband and the father of the girls. Chris's odd behavior both during media interviews and while watching surveillance footage of himself suspiciously loading his truck on the day of the disappearance makes some wonder, is he hiding something? At one point, Chris is brought in to speak with investigators. While continually denying having any knowledge of what happened, he does agree to a polygraph test.
Did you physically cause Shanann's disappearance?
No.
Are you lying about the last time you saw Shanann?
No.
The results of that polygraph were not what Watts wanted to hear.
So it is completely clear that you were not honest during the testing, and I think you already know that. You did not pass the polygraph test.
Okay.
Okay. So now we need to talk about what actually happened.
I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise. Chris, I know. Chris, stop. It's time.
Obviously, there was a lot going on physiologically with him as he was answering these questions to indicate that he was being deceptive in that moment. He's not a good liar.
Chris was covering up something that he eventually reveals.
But you weren't here today lying about something else. So we need to talk about that, okay? About your daughter.
Thank you so much for coming out here with me, Christopher. I'm having a wonderful time. You mean a lot to me.
The month prior to Shanann and the girls vanishing, Chris began a secret affair with Nicole Kessinger, a woman he met through work.
The affair between Chris Watts and Nikki Kessinger was very quick. He ended up being kind of like a lovesick puppy. They had a highly sexual relationship, and it was all consuming for Chris.
She accused me of it. I denied it. I cheated on her, and I feel horrible for it. Like, she was pregnant, and Scott fell in love with her. Absolutely. I mean, that's God's honest truth.
Despite Chris coming clean on the affair, Agents Coder and Lee still don't have an answer as to the whereabouts of Shanann and the girls, and they believe Chris knows more than he's saying.
How is it possible that a woman and 2 kids are just completely gone off the face of the earth? I promise you, I have nothing on my hands.
Police were using an investigative tool called the John Reed technique. Initially, what they did is they attempted to be his friend. They came off very soft. They start offering him positive reinforcement.
You're this great guy. I'm not just telling you that, okay? We're confused as to why you're not taking care of your beautiful children. I don't know where they're at.
The minute a subject, a person, starts to deny, what they did, the police and investigator want to cut it off right away.
These are your baby girls. And you have not shed one tear over them not being around.
I love those girls. I would never do any of this because I haven't shed a tear. You get
Yeah,
realize.
no, that's weird. Is that weird?
Then what happens is you kind of offer a how and why, like, why did this happen? How did this happen? Kind of give them an out.
Chris, did Shanann do something to them?
No, I don't know.
I'm curious.
I have no clue.
And it's that line of questioning that leads into the next stage of this interview. When we return, Chris's father speaks with his son, and the truth finally begins to come out.
This is horrible. Get back to your wife and your daughters. Okay. Where are they? That I do not know. I was holding back from last night. That's when you talked ill today.
That's not how that works.
It's August 15th, 2018 in Colorado. Chris Watts is telling authorities he has no idea what happened to his missing wife Shanann and his two daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste, who disappeared 2 days earlier. In fact, at the time, Shanann was pregnant with the couple's son, Nico. Chris keeps denying having any involvement in the disappearance, despite failing a polygraph test and admitting to having an extramarital affair. At one point in his interview with investigators, Chris's father, Ronnie, is brought in to speak with his son.
Anything else you want to tell me? What's going on? Or what happened or anything? If you know anything about it?
When we had that conversation that morning, it was emotional. It was, told her about separation and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think bringing his father in to talk to him was extremely smart on the investigators' part. They were right there at the edge. Now you want to offer that person a sense of comfort.
I want to protect her.
You don't want to protect her?
Huh?
She hurt him?
Yeah.
Chris shocks his father by claiming that after getting into an emotional fight with Shanann, she murdered their children.
She smelled it. Our children.
I didn't hear anything. When I was downstairs, they came back up and they were gone. Talking about separation and everything about, and she lost it.
He then says he killed her in a fit of rage.
I don't know, what else to say, I freaked out. Those are my kids.
Chris explains that after killing Shanann, he then decided to transport the bodies to a site near his workplace, where he proceeded to bury Shanann in a grave and disposed of his daughters in oil tanks.
I didn't know what else to do.
I know, this is what we did. I know.
I didn't know what else to do. I was so scared.
I know.
We hear of moms that kill their kids. Usually what precipitates that is some kind of psychotic break, some extreme substance use, or postpartum. And none of these are the case with Shanann. This story is not believable at all. It's really convenient for him. Most people would call the police, not kill their spouse and hide all of the bodies and try to pretend this never happened.
It's some of it's hard to believe that your wife did it, right? You can imagine that. Okay.
The bodies of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste would be found by law enforcement at the worksite.
Chris Watts stuffed his girls in these oil drums that were, 8 inches across. How could somebody do something so horrific to their own family? You really have to detach yourself and depersonalize and dehumanize the people that you're tossing away because you have to see them as garbage.
Ultimately, authorities didn't believe Chris's version of events, and he would be charged with murdering all 3 members of his family. Instead of fighting the case, Chris pleaded guilty to all charges. As part of that plea deal, the government agreed to take the death penalty off the table.
being in front of people, having cameras, and rehashing his bad deeds. I think he wanted to save face and just have it go away as quickly as possible.
But God only knows what happened that night. Life will never be the same without Shannon, Bella, and Celeste and Nico. I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. And they also trusted you. You disgust me.
This is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen.
Chris Watts was sentenced to 5 life terms in prison without the possibility of parole. This is only half of the Chris Watts story. Up next, there's so much more.
Couldn't I have, saved my girl's life? Couldn't I have done something? Why did I do it? I don't know.
Right.
This is my...
Hi, I'm Dan Abrams. In the exploding legal and true crime genre, Law and Crime is the only network that has it all.
Good evening and welcome.
This is a complicated case.
Don't really jump to conclusions.
Welcome to Prime Crime Tonight. Another day of drama between both sides.
From multiple live trials daily to original and compelling programming, the Law and Crime Network is everywhere, and we invite you inside the jury box. This is Law and Crime.
Think all court shows are the same?
We're talking about your father. Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Think again. Judge Caprio rules with common sense.
I was having contractions. I was rushing to the hospital.
Inspector Quinn, what does justice demand? Jail?
And compassion.
I'm going to take the circumstances into consideration.
The best court experience I've had.
Clearly, Judge, he's been in a court before.
Get caught in Providence.
Sounds like kind of, I'm sorry I lied to you. You knew what was going to happen.
After coming clean about having an affair, Chris Watts admitted and pleaded guilty to murdering his pregnant wife Shanann and their young daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste. He also confessed to disposing of their bodies in horrific ways, his wife thrown in a shallow grave and his girls dumped in oil tankers. The story, though, isn't over. In prison, Watts agreed to speak with authorities once again. However, this time, he divulged new, disturbing details of the killings.
I just wish I could have let go.
Did it seem like it was that long, 2 to 4 minutes?
I felt like it was longer almost, because it felt like time was standing still. Like a snap, just something coming out.
He chose to kill Shanann by strangulation. And this shows the anger and rage that he was experiencing in the moment. It makes me believe that there was probably some big fight that occurred right before this. And it's also incredibly personal. I don't think he experiences any regret with Shanann.
So what happened next? What she said. What'd you tell her?
Watts explains that after killing Shanann, he loaded her body in his car, along with strapping in his girls, who just sat there with the corpse of their mother. Watts then proceeded to drive out to the dump site, where he claims he then murdered the girls.
CC was first. I put the blanket over her head, strangled her right there in the back seat.
Okay. And then went down to Bella. Tell me what happened there.
First, she asked if it was the same thing, the exact same thing that happened to me as CC. I don't know if I just said yes, like a horrible person, or if I just put that blanket over her too and did the same thing.
But before Chris killed Bella, he claims she said one last thing.
She said, "No, Daddy." Like every time I close my eyes, I just hear her say, "Daddy, no," and that was it. I hear that every day.
It's different with the kids. He chose to smother Bella and Celeste. He is covering their faces. He doesn't see them take their last breaths. There was a bit of him that didn't want this to happen, that they were essentially collateral damage, and witnesses to what had happened to Shanann, and he needed to remove them.
Every time I see pictures of it, I don't know how this could have happened.
Chris's account in this interview is a long way from what he originally told investigators. The question is Chris now telling the truth?
Here's the thing that I found most peculiar. He was on top of her, having this heated discussion.
She like kind of rolled over, and then I was just like right there on top of her.
Okay. And then you're talking while you're on top of her?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That seems confusing to me.
You're in the midst of a breakup, and he said, "This is when I told her I didn't love her." You wouldn't be straddling your wife. My guts, it was premeditated.
Making this all the more complicated, while behind bars, Watts began a correspondence with an author. In a series of letters, Watts seems to change the story once more. What seemed like an unplanned killing of his daughters now appears to be premeditated, as he writes in one note, "August 12th, when I finished putting the girls to bed, I walked away and said, 'That's the last time I'm going to be tucking my babies in.' I knew what was going to happen the day before, and I did nothing to stop it."
I don't believe that he ever intended to just kill her and have his kids afterwards, because he separated his life in two boxes. He had this new life of getting an Audi, looking for a new place with a new woman, having that sense of freedom. And once he had a taste of that, I think that was the point of no return for him.
I think that this was an impulsive act that was not premeditated. And I think that these letters are an additional attempt to gain some sympathy and even empathy from people.
While we can debate if Chris Watts is actually telling the truth, whatever really happened doesn't change the impact of this case, nor what it means.
Back in 2018, I was working in Colorado as a police psychologist, assisting law enforcement in their reactions after investigating this case, and it took a massive psychological toll on the people that were involved. People identified with and were scared of the fact that this could be their neighbor, that this seemingly normal, happy family of what you saw on social media was hiding some very big secrets, and this could be the person that lives 3 houses down from you.
Chris Watts went from a beloved father and husband to one of America's most infamous killers seemingly overnight. It's a story that is haunting and that is scary. But what is so unsettling about all this is that as he keeps changing the narrative and adding details, the reality is we may never get all the answers that we're looking for. That's all we have for you here on Prime Crime. Leave us your comments on Instagram and Twitter with the hashtag PrimeCrime. As always, thank you for joining us. And until next time, be safe.